Olivia Bria, and today we have a special guest who is very well known and has shared her story all around the world. Please welcome Michelle Rapel.
Thanks for having me, Olivia.
Thank you for being here.
So I brought with me a diagram that I'm going to show to you viewers at home that will help me explain to you how pacemakers work and what they're all about. So hit it.
A pacemaker consists of a battery, a computerized generator, and wires with sensors at their tips. These sensors are known as electrodes. The battery powers the generator, and both are surrounded by a thin metal box. The wires connect the generator to the heart through the vein, as shown in the picture. A pacemaker helps monitor and control your heartbeat. The electrodes detect your heart's electrical activity and sends data through the wires to the computer in the generator. If your heart rhythm is abnormal, the computer will tell the generator to send electrical pulses to your heart. The pulses then travel through the wires to reach your heart.
Pacemakers are most commonly used in patients whose heartbeat slows to an unhealthy low rate. There are two main types of programming for pacemakers, and they are called demand pacing or rate-responsive pacing. A demand pacemaker monitors your heart rhythm, and it only sends electrical pulses to your heart if your heart is beating too slow or if it misses a beat. A rate-responsive pacemaker will speed up or slow down your heart rate depending on how active you are, so if you're doing a sport per se. Now that we learned a little about the pacemaker and what it is or what it does, Michelle is going to tell us her unique experiences about her heart. So Michelle, tell us your story.
Okay, well, I was born with a couple different congenital heart defects. The ones that pertain to my pacemaker story was that I had a ventricle septal defect and an atrium septal defect, which that basically means that I had a hole between my two atriums and I had another hole between my two ventricles. So the hole between the two ventricles was abnormally large, and it was most detrimental, as most of you know, because that means that my oxygenated blood was mixing with my deoxygenated blood, which is never a good sign. So basically my parents wanted to find a doctor that could fix the majority of my heart defects in one procedure, and many of the doctors that they went to said that the hole between my two ventricles was too big to be fixed. But eventually they found a surgeon at Columbia Hospital in New York City that felt pretty confident he could fix the hole between my two ventricles as well as my other defects. So he did a little too good of a job, as he actually sewed too far. He sewed the hole too far up, and he went over my SA node, which, as we all know, is the heart's pacemaker. So that caused my heart to experience heart block, which means that the electrical impulses that tell the ventricle how fast to beat the electrical impulses could no longer reach my ventricle. So my heart now had no way of knowing how fast to beat, which caused me to need to put in an artificial pacemaker, which is what I have today.
So how old are you when you got your first pacemaker?
When I got my first pacemaker, I was 2.5, and it went into my stomach, and I've had about 5 pacemakers since then, and the current one I have is in my chest right here.
Okay, thank you for sharing your story. So now we organized a little true and false game, and Michelle is going to say some statements, and I'm going to say if they're true or false.
Now I'm going to try to trick her, so let's go. The first statement, pacemakers are only for old people. True or false?
Definitely false.
Yeah, this was an easy one. False, as I am witness, people of all ages can have pacemakers, and it basically just depends on their heart and their heart's abilities. Age is not really a factor in it. People with pacemakers cannot perform most forms of physical activity. True or false?
I think that's true.
False. People with pacemakers can basically do any kind of activity besides, the only exception is doctors advise against contact sports because the pacemaker could dislodge and the wires could come out and it will stop operating, which would not be good. So Yeah, but most physical activity. The next statement, people with pacemakers can go through metal detectors and have MRIs. True or false?
True.
False. The MRIs and metal detectors have strong magnetic fields that could temporarily or permanently disable electrical devices such as pacemakers. So, yeah, I don't go through metal detectors, which makes it extremely hard to travel on airplanes because security, you have to go through metal detectors, which that adds a hefty load of time to my travel times. True story. Okay. Next, the last one, pacemakers last a lifetime. True or false?
Pretty sure it's false.
False. You got one right. Good job. Pacemakers only on average last about 6 or 7 years. It depends on how active they are. So, as I said, I've had 5 in my lifetime. So, yeah. Thanks for playing, Liv.
Thanks for asking me the questions. That concludes our show for today. A special thanks to Michelle Rapel for teaching us all about the heart's electrical system and specifically the pacemaker. So thank you, Michelle.
Thanks for having me, Liv. I had a great time.
So until next time, see you later on the Heart to Heart Show with your host, Olivia Bria. Bye.